welcome to a new episode of the Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Mike. And tonight I'm joined by Katie, and we're here to preview this weekend's trip to Norfolk as we prepare to face Norwich City. Carrow Road, a ground which has been quite a happy hunting ground for Watford of late, and hopefully that will continue if you obviously scratch off last season. But before we get our guest in tonight, who is Freddie from the MFW Podcast, like I say, I am joined by Katie. How's things, Katie? Are you all good?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Excited for the game this weekend, although I will be moving back to uni on the Saturday, so I'm not going to be able to watch, but I'm sure you guys will keep me updated and hopefully we will.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's me and Cam are going. It's one of those, it's a Saturday 12:30. Obviously now with the new TV deal, there's 3 12:30 games, I believe, in the Champ, League One and League Two. So there's 3 each. I think they're all on telly, whether it's on the main Sky Sports channel or the Sky Sports Plus. And we are the unfortunate ones this weekend. We've got a nice trip to Norfolk, which is a bit of an awkward drive out there on the side of the country to get there for 12:30. So I think I'm going to be leaving here about 7:30. To get there in ample time to park up and have myself a drink. So, yeah, fingers crossed it continues to be a good time at Carrow Road. Like I said a minute ago, we are joined by a guest. We are joined by Freddie from the MFW Podcast. Freddie, thank you very much for joining us tonight. How's things with you, mate? You all good?
Yeah, mate, they're brilliant. No, what about yourself? How are you both?
Yeah, it's crazy, to be honest, because we did not expect to be doing as well as we are. So that's come as a massive surprise, but we'll absolutely take it. And to be honest, that leads quite nicely into my first question, Freddie. Let's talk about last season. You finished 6th. You pipped Hull to the post for the playoffs. Unfortunately, you did lose in the playoffs to Leeds, 4-0 in the first game, 0-0 in the second game. How would you sum up last season as a Norwich fan? Because the season before last, I think you finished sort of middle of the road, somewhere between 13th, 15th, around that sort of time. So then to go from that to then getting into the playoffs, was it a massive surprise? Is there a feeling of we should be up there? Because let's be honest, Watford and Norwich in recent years, we've sort of been brothers in arms a bit. Us, Norwich, Bournemouth as well, if you want to include them. Up together, down together. So what was the feeling of getting the playoffs last season and losing out on them? Was there a massive disappointment? And once you're in the playoffs, was you expecting to go on and win them? What was the general feel?
It was a weird one, really. The whole season was just bizarre because there was, of course, at home, well, we still haven't lost at home since last November. We just had an incredible run at home. I think we won 9 or 10 of about 11 or 12 home games from November until the end of the season. We just went on this ludicrous run at home and it was brilliant. But away from home, we're just so poor. That's really what I think. That arguably is what prevented this team from finishing higher in the table. It could have pushed for maybe even third at one point. So I think getting into the playoffs, I wouldn't say it was maybe a surprise. I think the squad that we had and arguably still have should be competing. I think it's a very strong team for this level, albeit we've now lost a lot of firepower over the summer. But last season was very much an expectation, even though David Wagner didn't exactly have the best tenure at Norwich. There's no denying that. But I think it was perfectly fair enough that we ended up in the playoffs and ended up where we were. But against Leeds, I think we were always the underdog. I think we did well to get a 0-0 draw at Carrow Road, but at Elland Road, it was disastrous. That's just how our away form is. So if anything, after 2 away games, I'm quite happy we're playing at home again because we seem to do all right, but records are there to be broken. And with the start you've had, I mean, it could go either way. It's a game I very much look forward to. It's one that should really, if anything, it should be in front of a TV audience because it's a game that could be a very high entertainment value.
Yeah, Freddie, you've got a new manager this season. He's quite young. He's only 35. How would you describe the way that he plays? What's he kind of like?
It's the weird. Well, going a lot more sort of into the modern way of how everyone wants to play football, with the classic 3-2-3-2 build-up play. Pretty much, I think we do more sort of a three at the back. The left back becomes a centre half. We pack our midfield with 5, and then or 2 even, and then we go with 5 up front, and pretty much the right back becomes a winger. One of the central midfielders becomes a striker. So we just play the standard style of football for a lot of teams now in modern football. Just a lot of just passing play and trying to be intricate in possession. A big sort of philosophy of our manager, Johannes Hoff-Torp, is all about trying to dominate games in possession, always being that team to score the next goal, take the sting out of any game possible, just control it and make it difficult for the opponents. Let them do all the running for you, and then just play intricate passes, and then just tire them out, and just be smart, be really intelligent when in possession and as an individual. And then, of course, off the ball, all about pressing and trying to match numbers in the midfield. I think this is where maybe the game could become difficult for us, maybe in midfield. I think because of the physicality that Watford possess, instantly I think of Moussa Sissoko and I think of Kayembe, 2 really big, burly, physical players. Norwich's midfield doesn't really have that. So I think the midfield battle will be an interesting one. Because, well, as I say, when we build up, we only play with 2 in midfield. So if we get caught on the counter, I wouldn't be surprised to see that be a weakness maybe, and we get overrun in midfield. But to answer that question, really, it's just sort of a lot more of what modern football has become, playing out from the back, just trying to control possession and just bomb everyone forward to try and create those openings.
Yeah, you took one of my questions. You already answered it. I was going to say, a lot sounds good there with what you've seen so far, even though we are early on into the season. What would sort of be the flaws in the way that he plays? But it's interesting you mentioned that midfield battle, and I feel like so far this season we've come up against a lot of teams, and if we win that midfield battle, then we'll come out on top. And you're right to point out Sissoko's been fantastic since he come in. Although every time I think of the word Sissoko and then you put Norwich in it, it sends shudders down my spine because of that horrendous home game in the Premier League where he wrote to all the fans and there were fireworks and everything, and then we got absolutely battered 3-0 by you boys.
That was genuinely the worst game in recent years. It was 100%. So bad.
Yeah, they tried to hype it up, and one of the questions later on actually is. It's going to be linked to that, and I think I might know what the answer is to that. But in terms of the transfer business so far, Freddie, from what I've seen, I've done a bit of research. I counted 8 players that I think will be in and around the first team involvement. I think there are a couple on there that maybe younger lads coming into the youth academy, but you might correct me. So. One of them noticeably spent 11 million euros on a young striker from the Polish league. I'm probably going to absolutely butcher the pronunciation, but Ante Chernak or Kernak, I'm not sure. But including him, because that is quite a lot of money to spend in the Championship. I mean, we know we've not spent a penny, and we've raked in. Well, no, that's a lie. We have spent some money, but nowhere near as much considering how much we've drawn in from transfer budget. So to see a team splashing 11 million euros on someone, you'd expect there to be a bit of hype. So you tell us a little bit more about him, and then just your transfer business in general. Has it been a good window for Norwich? Are there areas that you would have liked to have improved on that you haven't? What's your thoughts?
I'd argue it has been. I think we've identified the areas that needed replacing. Losing Gabriel Sara and Jonathan Rowe was huge, really. But they were 2 players who a lot of Norwich fans expected to go out of the door. And we brought in players that could arguably be their replacements, albeit of course, it's going to be very difficult to match the ability and goal-scoring capabilities of Sara and Rowe. Norwich have lost a lot of goal input over their summer sales, but the players brought in, Ante Chernak has not exactly hit the ground running yet. He is still very young, and it's a new league to adapt to. And it is a lot of money on a player who isn't even our starting striker and won't really be our starting striker as long as Josh Sargent is fit. because just the ability Sargent possesses, there is no way he gets dislodged unless he's injured or he is a doubt. Cernac is he can play sort of anywhere across the front three. We've mainly utilised him as a right winger so far, and he's been sort of ineffective. Maybe that's just because we're trying to shoehorn him in, and he's having to play in a weaker position where he's not as comfortable and he won't get as many goal-scoring opportunities. He won't be playing to the strength of his game, but it is a lot of money, but that's mainly because Adam Eder was sold for the same amount of money to Celtic, and now he went on and scored for them in the Champions League last night. So, it's annoying when that sort of thing happens, but I think overall I've been happy with it. We've brought in a lot of younger players. That was what our sporting director, Ben Napper, wanted to do. He wanted to bring our average age of the squad down because last season, Shane Duffy, Ashley Barnes brought in, Danny Bart was brought in as well. There was so many older players brought in, but I think I'm happy with it. And as long as they can showcase that they belong in this side and that they can do well under the new style of play, then I'm more than happy with that. As long as they can do the talking on the pitch and just make fans forget about their transfer fee, that's all I care about. But I'm happy with what has been brought in, definitely.
You touched on quite a few of your key players leaving this summer. Are you disappointed that you've lost these players? Or do you feel like they were kind of long overdue? What's your thoughts on the outgoings?
I think they were overdue, especially Gabriel Sara. I'm amazed we were able to get another season out of him because he is a phenomenal footballer. It's a real shame that he started okay at Galatasaray, scored and got 2 assists the other night, but he didn't really start off all that well, and he was getting a bit of stick from a few of their fans, which was upsetting to see because he is a fantastic footballer. There's a reason why we would sing about him being one of the best we've ever seen. He is truly phenomenal, especially at this level. He was a glorious player to watch, and I expected him to go. Jonathan Rowe, I expected as well. I think that was due to happen because of the season he had, and I don't think he wanted to play Championship football again. Well, he made it clear. First game of the season against Oxford, 20 minutes before the team meeting on the day of the game, he makes himself unavailable, and because he was all the transfer interest around him, he said it affected his mind space, didn't want to play, and then he didn't. Johannesov tore up straight away, froze him out of the team, didn't play him again, and we didn't get an apology from Rowe until he left for Marseille, and no one really took it kindly because of the way of which he treated the team, which gave him his first chance at academy football at a high level, gave him his first chance at senior football, ends up smashing it in his first full season, and then you just sort of get that thrown straight back in your face. It's a very rare thing in football, loyalty, and it's a shame because albeit he could do well at Marseille, he'll probably end up being a backup player, but he's on loan with an obligation to buy. But again, just a player who I expected to leave. It just the way in which it happened was very, very upsetting and disappointing. But the players who have left over the summer, Adam Eder as well, I think they're all expected. There's no doubt. Well, with Eder as well, he wanted that move back to Celtic. No one could have denied him it. His heart was set on it. We got good money out of it, and he's now thriving for them. So the key players we lost, very much expected, but the replacements so far have looked a mixed bag. They've looked okay, but there's still, even after the game on Saturday, there's 40 Championship games to put that right. So there's a long time, and patience hopefully is a virtue, and that's what a lot of our fans need right now because this is a new project. Yes, it's not started off that great, but who knows? Any game could be the turning point.
Yeah, don't worry. We know exactly what it's like to have one of our better players nicked by Marseille, Ismail Kone being the Watford example. So they've made a few shrewd signings, I must admit. But you mentioned there about it being a project. You've got a new man in the dugout. He's very young. These things take time. If he was at Watford, he wouldn't have the time. We all know what would happen. But we're in a similar situation, to be fair. You think about it. Clevs he's not quite 35. I think he's not that much older. But it's about... He is 35, isn't he?
Because he's the same age as Sissoko.
Yeah, there we go then. So he is 35. I stand corrected. So, we're both in sort of similar positions there, Freddie. You mentioned about the project. What was the feel? Obviously, when your man come in, Torrup, when he come in, what was the feel in terms of your aims for this season? Is it to get back to the big lands? Because obviously, Watford are tarred with the same brush as Norwich are, a yo-yo club, all this. It gets boring. I mean, granted, Watford have been down. Did we come down the same season? So this will be our third season back in the Championship. I think we come down the same season, didn't we?
Who
So
else was
what's the feel from Norwich's side? Because with Watford, I mean, this is our third season back in, and usually, if you're still here 3 years later, it's probably not going to happen for another while. But are you expecting playoffs this season compared, when you look at last season, or are you like, right, new manager, new project, let's just settle, and then next season we build?
Yeah, I go with the latter there. I think, but the thing is with Norwich fans, we're very expectant in this division because we have tonked it in previous years, especially when we went up in back-to-back seasons. Technically, I mean, but our squad was amazing, and we had Emi Buendia and Timu Puki just every single week, either scoring or assisting one another. I mean, it was ridiculous, the fact we had them in both seasons. Of course, then, as you say there, Tarn with the yo-yo team, it is very frustrating like that. But I think this probably is the start of a new era at Norwich under Torrup, and I'd hope that we will be sort of in and around it. We've got the squad to do it. We proved that last season under what many fans are claiming was a worse manager in David Wagner, but it's interesting because we have lost a lot of firepower, as I've already said, and we've brought in replacements who have shown signs that they can be good. We've still kept a lot of the sort of core of that team from last season, and with the signings, arguably maybe have improved a little bit. I mean, Callum Doyle on loan is a steal of a signing. I mean, that is just, I can't believe he's opted to play Championship football for another year. He's absolutely phenomenal. He will be key for us in a lot of games, and so I have to wait and see. I would, and it's a new style of play as well. It's not going to just click within the first 6-10 games of the season. You have to be patient, and we learned it under Daniel Farker. His first season at Norwich, we finished 14th, and we looked bang average. And if anything, I think a lot of fans were calling for his head at times in his first season, but we stayed patient, and then the very next season won the league with over 90 points, and then the second time around won the league on 97 points, and even in the Premier League under him, when we did finish bottom of the league, we had some very good games. Of course, I can't not mention beating Manchester City, but that counted for nothing in the end. But it's just the thing, we've done it before in terms of we've got a new manager in from overseas, and we've given them time to bring in the players they want and get the play style right and get everyone going with it. So if history can repeat itself, that would be very nice. So I would like to see us at least compete to be in the top 6. It would be annoying if we didn't, but if we were to finish sort of around 12th to 15th, but looked good while doing it along the way, I don't think that wouldn't dishearten many, because then you get another season, you get another crack at it to see what players you don't want, see who you really want, to build on what you've got, and then you can just build from there. And then who knows what could happen under Torrup. But I think maybe upper mid-table is what I would say. I'd expect us to get at the best, I reckon.
Yeah. Have you got any key memories of this fixture? I'm sure I can name a few, but any good memories home and away?
Well, straight away, 3-0 at Vicarage Road. Norwich, that game, thanks to that game, that was the one and only game week we weren't in the relegation zone after that in the Premier League season. That was Josh Sargent with his first 2 goals for Norwich. He didn't score for the rest of the season, so that was his first 2 Premier League goals for Norwich, and now is still at Championship level has proven his worth. It's amazing sort of the contrast from that Premier League season to now. He's kicked on and is arguably the best striker in the division. What statistics back him up in a way that he is the best striker in the division. But no, he is fantastic. That game was amazing. I mean, that had, from a Norwich perspective, it had everything that could have gone right. I mean, Sargent scoring a brace was unheard of, let alone a scorpion kick. Probably the worst scorpion kick goal you'll ever see. But no, it was just fantastic. And then, of course, a Kuchka own goal from brilliant work from Ida to drill a low cross, and then got, well, unfortunately for you lot, diverted into his own net. But floodlight went out in that game as well. I remember that because I think that went off when it was either, I think it was at 1-0, and I thought, you better not, if this game gets cancelled and we have to replay it, I'm fuming. I was waiting for Mike Dean to just go, right, everyone off, we can't play anymore, we'll play this again in some time, and then we probably would have lost it. But no, that was really good fun. Another away game, I think when we won the playoffs, I think you went up automatically. I think we won, I want to say we won away from home. I think Cameron Jerome.
Alex Neil was in charge, I believe.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Cameron Jerome scored. It was either him or Bradley Johnson scored an absolute worldie and we won the game. So that's another good memory. Can't really think of many at home. We do usually seem to struggle against you at Carrow Road. The one that sort of springs to mind, we got relegated anyway, 2015-16 season, last home game of season, we won 4-2. And it's the fact we couldn't have done that about 2 weeks earlier, we probably could have stayed up that year for once. But that was good. I think Jamercy and Bakani scored a brace. Redmond scored as well. That was a pretty good day. But your lot were already safe and we got relegated because Sunderland won. But no, they're the only games I can think of in this very fixture that stand out, because we don't really seem to have that much joy against Watford, especially as of late. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I was at last season's game at Vicarage Road. Of course, we were 2-0 up in, 15 minutes. I couldn't believe my eyes because we hadn't won in ages. I thought, I brought all my mates as well who had never been to a Norwich game, and they're going, "Well, you lot are amazing. You lot are brilliant. You're fantastic. How are you mid-table?" And then we lost, and then we were 3-2 down with 20 minutes to go or whatever, and that was why. Here's why we're mid-table. Here's why it's all going wrong. But no, there's not many positive memories to say the least. But hopefully we can add to that at the weekend and maybe have a repeat of last season's games at Carrow Road. Because that was a great win for us at the time. But who knows what will happen? I hope it'll be a game of high interest, I'd like to think, because it's a very interesting one on paper. But yeah, hopefully it can actually add to a positive list of memories rather than more negative ones that I've seen sort of over the course of the last few years.
Yeah, well, some of them games you mentioned there, obviously I touched on earlier that one at home, really tried rallying the troops, Sissoko did, and we all got an email, captain's message, really wanted to, really want to pack out Vicarage Road, and I was just like, this couldn't be going any worse. I mean, that scorpion kick, I think, summed up the game because of how crap it was, yet it still went in. I mean, Katie... Freddie mentions there, there's a long list of good memories for Watford in this fixture. Are there any that spring that in mind to you that are good memories?
For me, I feel like it's kind of like a bogey team almost. You never really know what you're gonna get. I feel like on paper, I feel like we've won a lot, but when I think of Norwich, I always think, oh, that's a tough game. Even though we have won some games, I always remember that picture someone put on our Twitter of Dennis doing the backflip and that Norwich guy's got his middle finger up at him. It's a very funny picture. But I have to say that game, that home game when Sissoko sent that email, that was awful. And it was don't stay at home just because we're on TV. Don't stay at home. Come down, support us. And it was 8. Was it a Friday or something? It was a late game.
Yeah, it was a late game.
Fireworks, all these flame things. I was like, oh my god, this is going to be so embarrassing if we lose. And then the floodlight went off, and I was like, this is just a joke. This is actually a joke. But no, I do feel like you never really know what you're going to get. It can go either way. So who knows?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, for me, you mentioned that season that we went back up after lockdown, when Dennis scored that picture that you talk about. The game in lockdown as well, when we won 1-0, Dan Gosling scored.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was a huge turning point for us to get promoted that season. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, did you guys win the league in lockdown, Freddie?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We won the league, 97 points, and I think Buendia got double-digit goals and assists. And we absolutely we tonked the league that season. We were unstoppable at times. We were just phenomenal.
We did the double over them because it was Cisco's first game in charge. That was, I think, Boxing Day or around Christmas. Ismail Sarr scored. It was quite early on. I think they had quite a depleted squad. They had McGovern in goal for one. So I think that tells you all you need to know. And then, we won the reverse fixture 1-0. And that was a massive, massive result for us because, like Freddie said, they absolutely ran away with it. And for us to go there and get that win was absolutely huge. And that one sticks out in my mind. I was in Magaluf for one when we won under Slaven Bilic. I think it was 3-2. Loser scored, and then did he miss a penalty as well? Keenan Davis scored. And then obviously last season where we went 2-0 down, that Huang Chi, is it? If I'm not
Huang
mistaken.
Zhou, yeah.
Oh my God, what a goal that! I mean, Hamer helped him by practically being halfway down the road to bloody Bedfordshire, but it was still a great strike. So, to go 2-0 down, I was sat there and I was like, oh my God. But for us to come back, that was huge as well. I also went to, I think my first ever time at Carrow Road was when Danny Rose scored an own goal and he lobbed Scott Loach from yards out. This was going back a few years. Troy Deeney's first game in a Watford shirt was at Norwich, that game where we won. It was TV Friday night. And then my last trip to Carrow Road was the game where Slaven Bilic, we were depleted. Gaspar was in centre midfield with Bakuna. We had 14 injuries. They showed a graphic of the injured players. There were 14 of them. And then we had a further 3 in the game. And then we went and won 1-0 because we hit Norwich on the counter. And I remember watching the video back, and I can't remember who it was at the back for Norwich.
Sam
they
McCallum.
they tried to pump a ball back in and just completely hashed it. And the collective groans, because obviously at Norwich, depending on where you stand, you could be right next to the home fans. The collective groans. And then he went to try and win the ball back off Sarr, and Sarr just galloped over him. So, lots of good memories against Norwich, and hopefully this weekend they continue. But in terms of score prediction, Freddie, you mentioned there at home you've not lost till November. I didn't know that, so that's not filled me with massive joy. What you thinking score prediction wise this weekend, Freddie?
Well, it's going to be a really hard one for us, as I've already sort of alluded to. The midfield battle for me will be key in this. I think that's really where the game could be won if we are weak in midfield. And I think if we're without our new loan signing, Anis Slimane from Sheffield United, who, when we played Coventry and beat them 1-0, he was massive in that game. He just the nastiness and physicality he added to midfield was just an excellent boost. But just without him, we do seem a bit frail and a bit brittle. But then again, we've got the quality to do well in the game. But I just think it will be we tend to struggle in games where we have to have a lot of battles, and I think it will. If it's going to come to that, then that could be where it costs us. I don't think that we'll lose. I think we've got enough ability to get us over the line, but I'll go with a 1-1 draw, I reckon. It will be hard for us. I think we'll have to be on proper top game, especially the start you've had. I mean, 5 out of 5 wins at the start of the season was out of 4 of them championship sides. I cannot believe how well Tom Cleverley has done. The fact that, well, you've already said as well, Watford managers are barely given any time once things start to go wrong. The fact he can get a tune out of this squad and he is flying with them, it does worry me. It's because if you've got a new manager, you want the start Watford have had, and then you look at us, 5 points from 15. You don't want that at all. But I think that's where, it will be a difficult one. But to answer the question, I'll go with a 1-1 draw. But I'm more than happy to be proved wrong in a positive way for me. But I wouldn't be surprised if I was proved wrong and Watford maybe just control the game. So who knows?
Yeah. And Katie, score prediction?
I think as well, I can see it being a draw because, again, I didn't know that you hadn't lost at home. So now I'm like, oh God, like we're going to lose. I think I feel confident. I think for us, there's a lot of factors. If we start the right team, I think we can get off on the front foot. I think cleverly the last couple of games, he starts with the sort of less good side and then brings everyone on because people are coming, people are not at full fitness. So I think if that starting lineup is the people who should be starting, I think we can win. I think I can see us maybe getting like a 2-1 win, maybe like sneaking it at the end. But I do think a draw is probably most likely to happen because I can't see Tom Cleverley instantly going in with the big guns. But I think it'll be a tight game. I think it'll be really, really close. So I think a draw is probably what will happen, but I hope we can win.
Yeah, well, me and you are going to speak about team news when Freddie's gone in a short while. So stay tuned if you're watching, guys. I echo what everyone said so far. I think this is really going to be a good battle. Norwich not lost at home since November, and with us, we're flying at the moment. Granted, the last 2 games we've only picked up 1 point, but we come out unscathed from that Coventry game. They absolutely battered us from pillar to post in that first half, and still it was only 1-0 at half time. And then in the second half, it was much better. One thing for me is we have to cut out this nonsense of conceding in the first 5 minutes. It's happened in the last 3 games in a row. And if we can cut that out, then I'll be confident that we'll grow stronger into the game and we can maybe come away with something. I think it's going to be a closely contested game. And I think we'll come away with 3 points. I think 2-1 to Watford is the score prediction I'm going. And then just lastly, Freddie, we always ask opposition podcasts on our show who their 3 to go up is and who their 3 to go down is. So let's start with who's your 3 to go down this season, Freddie?
I think Plymouth arguably nailed on. They've got a great ability, but I just don't back Rooney as a manager. Given his record, I don't back him. I'll also go with Derby. I think a lot of people probably have them to go down. They've had an all right start. We play them after you, so they'll probably beat us now. I've said that, but that will be. I think they just don't have the ability. I watched their opening game with Blackburn, and just after getting level, they completely took their foot off the gas, and they were really, really poor. So I don't think that they'll be able to stay up this time around. And then just trying to think of the third one's very difficult. There's a lot of teams who are going to be fighting for their lives down there near the bottom of the table, and there's teams who haven't had arguably the best starts. If you asked me this before the season, I'd have said Oxford. But given how well Oxford have started, I don't dare say Oxford. They've been fantastic so far. So it's a really difficult one to sort of put onto that third team, really. Now I've actually got to sort of think of an answer. You know what? I'll stick with Oxford. Actually, I'll stick with my guns from before the season, and I'll stick with them. But they've been very good, though. I'll gladly give them credit, but maybe if they get some poor results in the sort of latter stage of the season, maybe that could be a deciding factor. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that was a worry for Watford fans this season, and I'm sure Katie agrees. We certainly didn't expect to start the way that we have. And I think that was the worry, was going into this season before the transfer window closed. And this is why they say not to judge so early, but that rule doesn't exist on Watford Twitter, unfortunately. But it was, you're looking at the teams and like, right, who's your 3 to go down? You can maybe nail down 2. like as sort of almost dead certs, if you like, and think, yeah, they're going to be banging trouble. But like you just had the problem of trying to name a third. We were like, are we the third? Is it going to be us? So it's a little bit more breathing space now. We've picked up the amount of points that we have. But yeah, it is going to be tough. And those boys that have come up are putting up a bit of a fight. I mean, you mentioned Derby there. They took the foot off the gas in that opening game against Blackburn. Did the same against us. I know they've picked up a few good results at home recently, but they went 1-0 up again, early doors against us. And straight away, they were like, right, we're happy to just sit on this 1-0. And without sounding cocky or arrogant, you just can't do that against us. At home, especially. We look a different animal at home. Klebs hasn't lost at home, and that goes back to last season when he took interim charge. So, yeah, maybe a bit of naivety from Paul Warne, which is quite surprising because he's got the experience in the division. And then in terms of 3 to go up, who would they be? So winner, second, and then playoff winner.
I think winning the league, well, I'm going to sound funny. Originally, in my pre-season predictions, I had Luton to win the league. That's gone very well. So I'm sure as Watford fans, you're very much enjoying that.
Absolutely.
So I think to win the league, I think I'll go with Sheffield United. They've been fantastic so far. Sheffield United, they look absolutely fantastic so far. They've been absolutely smashing it. They are probably the strongest team in the division. Chris Wilde is a great manager for this level as well. So I expect them to go up. Second place, again, is much like sort of trying to decide who goes down. It's a difficult one because there's a lot of good teams up there at that sort of top end of the table who I expect to be in and around there. Like Coventry could maybe push in there because they're a good enough side. Burnley could maybe get in because they've got a good manager for the level, and albeit they've lost a lot of players, they still have a very good squad. They've got a strong team for the Championship. And there's other teams as well. Middlesbrough could even, if they keep cracking on and just don't drop off like they've done the last few seasons, they could be up there. But I think I'll probably go with the other Prem relegated boys, Burnley, to be the ones who sneak in there and just get there because of the know-how of Scott Parker in this division and the squads that they possess. Playoff winner, I'll probably go with Coventry this time around. I think that they definitely can get in there. Even though we beat them 1-0 a couple of weeks ago, they look so strong. They missed a lot of good chances, and if it weren't for us, really, if it weren't for us, really, just actually doing what Johannes wants us to do and just dominate possession and off the ball, just match them for intensity, work harder than them. We would have come away with a draw or a defeat. If that shows how difficult they are maybe to beat. We had to be so on it, and I was saying it to people I watched it with. That was the best I'd seen us play in ages. I watched that and thought, if this is what we're going to be under Torup, we could be right up there. But Coventry are a great team, a great manager in Mark Robbins, and they were penalty kicks away from the Premier League just 2 seasons ago. They've got a great squad. It's sort of becoming a bit of a theme really with the teams I'm saying to go up. All got great squads, but no, Coventry are a team I expect to do very well, and I'll go with them to win in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think I said Coventry in our pre-season prediction as well. I think I had them automatic though. But yeah, that's brilliant. Well, just before you go, Freddie, obviously you are from a podcast, the MFW, I believe it stands for My Football Writers podcast. Where can people find you? And also, have you, I know you do a lot of YouTube stuff. Have you done a Watford preview? Is that out there for people to watch?
Yes, it is. We actually uploaded that yesterday. That was myself and another guy on the channel. His name's Will Grant. He mainly focuses on our academy sides on the actual website. So we have done that more from sort of our standpoint of who we would like to see play, what we think of the game, and sort of how we can change from our prior game against Swansea, which was a dire performance from us. We were poor, but yeah, as long as we don't play like that, we should be all right. But no, so yeah, we've done a video previewing the game. You can find that on our YouTube channel. It's just as you said there, called My Football Writer, or you can put in MFW NCFC, and then that will come up. And you can find us pretty much anywhere. We've got just said, we've got our own website called My Football Writer. We're on Twitter as well, Facebook, Instagram. We upload our podcasts weekly to Spotify and also on YouTube as well. So we're on Spotify if you just prefer sticking it on in the background while you're doing something else. But yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere. We have done a Watford preview that's up on our YouTube channel. So Watford fans, feel free to watch that and probably disagree with everything we say. But yeah, no. So yeah, if anyone wants to give that a watch, please do. And if anyone is curious as to what we do on our channel, then check it out and hopefully they can enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. All the links to the MFW podcast is actually in the description. So if you're watching the video right now, scroll to the description and you'll see the links to the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So head over and go and check out their Watford preview as well, even if they do say not very nice things about Watford because they want to win, which absolutely it would only be the same if you weren't here, Freddie. We would be so much more biased. But thank you for coming on. We will speak to you probably in the reverse fixture, which I believe is January time. And at the moment, it is a Saturday. But with Sky, they will probably move it to, I don't know, a Friday at 5:30. So who knows? But thank you very much for joining us tonight, Freddie. Take care, mate.
You too. Thank you.
No worries, mate. There we go then, KT. I must admit, I should have done a bit of research there. I was not expecting them to be undefeated at home since November. So things have maybe got a little bit more tricky. Just before we go into team news and everything like that, in terms of what we would do, just a little bit of news coming out of Watford. Which sort of has happened since we last did a podcast, basically. So Armand Kavaja, who was one of the first team development coaches, has left the club. He issued a statement on the Watford website. Don't think he's gone anywhere yet, but usually when these things happen, it's because they've got something else lined up. So it'd be interesting to see where Armand goes. Obviously, he joins the setup when Clev's come in as interim manager. He joined from the women's side. He's had spells there. And he has had spells in the academy with Tom as well. And then a familiar face was pictured earlier in full Watford gear. He's training with the under-21s. Fernando Forestieri, there's a throwback for you. I believe he's training with the under-21s to gain some match fitness because I think the last I heard he was over in Asia somewhere. I want to say Korea, but I might be wrong. But yeah, it was a little throwback, and it was a great picture to see him, Tom, and I think it was his name escapes me now, Gianluca Nani. They were all laughing in it, so it was a great photo to see. In terms of team news, obviously Tom Cleverley did the press conference earlier. Ogbonna and Loser are in the squad, and Georgie hasn't trained at all this week, but Cleverley's hoping that he trains tomorrow. And he's given his chances more than 50-50 of being involved on Saturday. Thank God. Whew. Because when he went down on Saturday, oh my God, my heart was in my mouth. I've no idea what it was like in the stadium, Katie. I know you were there, but I can imagine it was very much the same feeling when we saw the stretcher come out and everything. Was it quite a worrying time?
Yeah, and I think the worst thing was that when we saw the stretcher down in like a tackle, he just went down and like no one even knew why or how or even saw him go down. So you're thinking, oh, maybe cramp, yeah. And then you see the stretcher and you're like, oh my God, like, and you know it's bad. You know it's bad, A, when the stretcher comes out, and B, when they have to go down from just not a tackle, just from like walking. So it was really worrying. And I also think the vibe from the game after that happened was like kind of dead. We had been really on the front foot, and then that happened, and the players, obviously everyone was a bit, well, obviously you're going to be shaken up. No one really knew what was going on. You're obviously concerned, so the game really lost its tempo. But then even by the time we were doing the review afterwards, we found out that it wasn't serious, so we didn't spend the whole podcast being worried about him afterwards. But yeah, I think for me, he's not someone I would risk on Saturday.
Okay.
Obviously, he's such a key player, but you'd rather just be like, hey, well, you need to, you did go off on a stretcher, even though it wasn't that serious. Just give him like the weekend off, or, who knows, maybe he'll be on the bench. I don't know. But for me, he's not someone I would risk.
Well, with the news that Ogbonna and Loser are going to be in the squad, what would you do in terms of the starting 11? So obviously, we saw the introduction of Festi Abasele against Coventry. He come on for Yasser Larouci. He was over on that left-hand side. Which was he over on the left-hand side, or was he over on the right?
No, he was on the left.
Yeah, he was. Yes. So yeah, with the introduction of him, are you tempted to start him over Larouci, or are you thinking no, let's keep Larouci in? The midfield too. Tom Delibashiru really couldn't get going until that second half. Do you stick with him and Musa in the middle? And then if you're not going to risk Georgie, I assume it's going to be Vata, or is it going to be Bar? Because I think Bar's about the same sort of. He's got the same sort of chance playing as Georgie has. I think that's what Clev said in the press conference earlier. And then the big one as well is who do you play up front? So what changes, if any, would you make to that team that played against Coventry?
For me, I would not play Larouci. I think he really struggles with defending. I think he's great going forward, but there was a real, every time he was trying to defend, it was like he'd never kicked football in his life, and it was worrying. And so, when you're playing a team like Norwich, you need someone who's going to be able to do both. And I thought that when Festi came on, I thought he did well, and I was really seeing his praise afterwards. I mean, obviously he was only on for half an hour, not that long, but for me that earns a start next week. But I think as well, even Tom said in the press conference, he said this is the hardest team selection he's ever going to have because so many people are back. For me, I think he will have. It's a difference between what you would want and what you think what he'll actually do. I think Ogbonna, for me, I think he should come straight in, but I think that he'll be on the bench.
Yeah.
But who knows? For me as well, I think Jefferson should be starting because he's come here as the starting striker. Tom Cleverley has sung his praise. He said he's so fit, he's up to speed, and Vakunbaya is starting over him, who is awful. He should be starting, and from what we've seen from him, especially on last weekend, I thought he did excellent, and I think that he has earned a starting position. Again, for Loser, I think the midfield for me hasn't been great the last couple of games. I think Deli Bashiru, he's constantly going missing. I think but I don't think it's enough to not play him. I think that he'll keep the same. For me, I mean, Loser, I want to see a lot of Loser, and I think he can add a lot to our team. But again, people coming back from injury, it's always do you just chuck them straight in, or do you just keep them on the bench and then see how they play? So I think we'll see more people on the bench a bit more bench movement. But I have a feeling that he's sort of going to stick with what he's been playing in the last couple of games. Bay up front, KM Bay as well. We spoke about him in the review. He's not adding anything, and I think he's someone who I can see sort of being replaced, but. Who knows? We don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what happens with that back three, because Cam made a good point. I would have brought Ogbonna in, but you have to factor and weigh up the fact that Ogbonna really needs to be playing in the centre of back three. And you're just not going to move Sierralta, because for me, Sierralta, I wasn't on the Coventry review podcast, but Sierralta, that was the best game he's had since that lockdown season where he was just immense. Granted, he got himself into a bad position a couple of times, and he shouldn't, he made some great last-ditch challenges, but if he was that one step ahead, he wouldn't have put himself in the position to have to make those challenges. But for me, I think he was superb on Saturday, clear winner and man of the match, and I think he did win it as well. So I wouldn't move him. And interestingly as well about Sierralta, I've got a few stats here. which I'll reel off in just a second. But Sierralta's got a 100% win ratio against Norwich. He's played them 4 times and won all 4. So, yeah, a little bit of the superstitious side of me wants to keep him in for that reason as well. But for me, I thought Porteous didn't look great against Coventry. I think there's still a lot hanging over his head from that Euros performance.
Yeah.
Obviously, confidence, it's going to knock the stuffing out of you if you're opening game of the tournament and you get sent off in the first half in your country's one of their biggest games in the competition. And he's come back and he's looked a little bit shaky, and there were rumours that he was going to even leave. So I don't know where his head is at the moment. But yeah, I can't see him bringing Morris back in. So I think he will stick with the same back three.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, you just can't risk moving Sierralta from that central role. And I wouldn't feel comfortable if you move Sierralta to the left or the right of the back three and then a Bonner there. So I think the back three stays as it is. I think the midfield too does as well, to be honest. I think Deli Bashiru and Sissoko will get the nod. Because, to be fair, I know Tom's taken a while to get going in games, but when he does get going, he's one hell of a player, and we're starting to see the best of him when he turns it on. It's just getting him to turn it on a more regular basis, early doors as well. I don't think a midfield pairing of Sissoko and Loser would work very well. I think they're too similar. You need that sort of engine in the middle. Loser's not going to be the one to be running here, there and everywhere. Loser's quite a Rolls Royce. He'll pick the ball up, maybe spray a pass out here and there, look for the little gaps in the pitch. Whereas Tom Deli Bashiru, he'll come deep, get the ball, try and connect it to the 2 number 10s and drive forward, and he's quite tenacious when he gets going. And I just don't think Loser's that player. So I think he'll stick with them. For me, it's going to be interesting, that sort of top end of the pitch. Does he risk Georgie? For me, I would. If he's okay to do so, do it. If there are question marks, don't. Yes. Kayembe, for me, I agree with what you've said. He's not looked great the last couple of games, but I just can't see Tom being ballsy enough, if that's the right word, to go with Georgie and Vata. It'd be great, and my God, it'd be one hell of great fun watching it. But I just think they're too similar. So I think if Georgie's okay, you've got to go with Georgie, and I think he'll stick with Kayembe as well. I wouldn't go with Kayembe personally. If Bar's fit enough, I'd chuck him in possibly for that 10 role. Yeah. Bio, I love Bio, and I've always liked Bio. It's clear he loves the club. He doesn't want to, like, when he got sent back to Charleroi a couple of seasons ago, you know, he did that interview with Andrew French, and he was like, I didn't know about it until the last minute. I didn't ask to leave and all this. And to be honest, I firmly believe that he hasn't asked to move to Udinese either. I think this is another Hassan Kamara type deal of, we need a bit of money. Oh, okay, let's choose you. You're going to Udinese, we're loaning you back, and there's going to be a pretty penny added onto that as well. So I like him. I think he does everything you want a striker to do, other than the big, blaring, obvious thing that you want a striker to do, and that's score goals. And unfortunately, if you're a striker that doesn't score goals, you're not going to last very long. But I think he's tenacious, the hard work, he wins it in the air as well, and he drops deep. And I think he's linked up place brilliantly, you know, since he's come in. But it's his lack of goals. That's what worries me. I think Jebison should start. And to be honest, I think he will start. I think Bio, I know he scored against Derby, and then we obviously lost to Sheffield United. So he wasn't going to bring Jebo straight in. So I think maybe he give Bio an extra game to be like, right, you know, is that confidence still there? But for me, I think maybe Jebo comes in. But it's going to be interesting what happens in those 2-10 roles, because that's where we can win the game, I feel. If George is on top form, he can win us games single-handedly this season. So, it's going to be very, very interesting. But just before we wrap up, I'll read through a few stats I've gathered. I went full professional mode, which doesn't suit me or Voices of the Vic, to be honest. I got in and I started writing some notes about the game. So we mentioned there, obviously, Norwich is a team recently where we've done really well. In fact, we've only lost twice in the last 10 games in all competition against Norwich. So that's really good going.
If you were telling me that, I wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah. However, if you look at the overall record, we've won 35. There's been 29 draws, and Norwich have won 44. So they are clear. Now, granted, that goes back to way back when. But, yeah. In terms of playing-wise, as a player, Tom Cleverley faced Norwich 11 times and only lost twice. He won 8, drawn 1, and then lost twice, obviously. So he's got quite a good personal record. We've already mentioned Sierralta having a 100% win ratio against Norwich. That's great. And interestingly, Freddie mentioned this game in the 2015-16 season. We lost 4-2. The last 2 defeats we've had at Carrow Road have been by a 4-2 scoreline. And that was in February, earlier this year. And then May in 2016. Both 4-2 defeats. So we don't often lose at Norwich, but when we do, it tends to be by a 4-2 scoreline. So hopefully that's not the case this weekend. And then the referee is going to be one that Watford fans have never seen before, quite simply because he's never officiated Watford. Anthony Backhouse from Cumbria is the ref, and it's only his 2nd season officiating at this level in the Championship. He last season started off with League One and a few EFL Cup games. Then he made the jump up to the Championship. And then so far this season, he's only done Championship. So in essence, you could say this is his first full season, providing he doesn't absolutely balls it up and get demoted. But this is, in essence, his first full season in the Championship. So let's see what he's like, eh? A new referee for Watford to have a grumble with. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up just nicely, just under the hour mark. Thanks for watching. If you're watching live now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the bell button as well. So every time we go live, you'll get a notification on the top of your screen, and it will say Voices of the Vic are live. If you're watching this back, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button. Same for you guys. I bang on about it so much, but the large majority of people that watch our videos, there's more that aren't subscribed that watch our videos than those that are. So if you're watching now, if you have a look at the bottom underneath where the description is, you'll be able to see whether you're subscribed or not. Like I say, all of our viewers, we get to see all the figures and that. The majority of people aren't subscribed that are watching to this. If you've got a Gmail account, it takes 2 seconds to log in to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. So we really do appreciate it. We're almost at 600. We hit the milestone of 500 last season. That was brilliant. And we're almost at 600. So if we can make that this season, that'd be great. But thank you for tuning in. And yeah, we'll be back on probably Sunday to talk about the Norwich game and hopefully 3 points for the Golden Boys. I believe there's going to be a matchday vlog from Sam Walker, who's recently joined in that area of the Voices of the Vic. And yeah, myself and Cam will be there. So if you're at the Norwich game and you see us, say hello, and we'll have a drink in the pub before. That's another thing as well. Before we forget, the pubs, the away pubs. We've done a little thread on Instagram and Twitter. If you head in there and want to know where the best place is to grab a bite to eat, grab a drink before the game, and even park your car, head over to our Twitter, and there's a thread of pubs that are away pub friendly, away fan friendly. So go and check that out. But yeah, till next time, come on, you Horns.